Hi, I'm Bill McLaughlin, Editor-in-Chief of Furniture Today. Welcome to our Las Vegas news desk. In keeping with the times, we are both at, Bob and I are both in our sequestered locations at the moment. We're recording this a little bit in advance. Bob, these are interesting times, are they not?
Well, is that a Chinese curse? May you live in interesting times.
I believe it is.
Certainly different opportunities than we've ever experienced, I think, any of us. And yeah, it's really remarkable, and especially in the context that it seems like almost weekly there are changes in government guidelines and people's perspective and sentiment and attitudes. Unlike anything certainly I've seen in my almost 45-year career.
Now, you've had to make a lot of adjustments in terms of your preparations for market, in terms of safety and PPE and taking temperatures and even the registration processes. Last week, you had an apparel market in Atlanta. Were there some things that provided in terms of learnings that you might be able to incorporate? What did you learn from that experience? How was that market?
It actually exceeded our expectations. We expected about 25% of the buyer attendance of a normal apparel market. And the last time I looked, we were over 30%. We thought maybe only about half of the tenants' showrooms would be open, and more than 70% were open. They were not staffed like for a normal show, but without a doubt, the people were here to do business. The buyers were here to do business, and we're hearing really favorable reports as it relates to furniture from May on being really robust at the consumer level. So we learned that there's a real bias for people to be in front of people physically. And of course, doing it safely is the North Star.
Now, you had done some research, very extensive research earlier that informed some of your decision making. One of the things that research showed, and this is even going back a ways, was a real need on retailers' part for inventory. Anecdotally, everything I hear suggests that need is even greater now and is accelerating. Do you have any insight on how that's progressed since that original research and what you're hearing?
Well, and we did a follow-up survey which validated that. And certainly a buyer is not going to come to market if they don't need to buy. It gets back to that point. And so there is a need. And again, the data we're looking at, in almost every regard, you've got the furniture industry that's back up in May and June ahead of year ago consumption. The home decor and gift industry is not far behind. The most negatively affected is apparel. But just coming off that apparel market, there are people doing commerce. So, clearly that, the fulfillment, element, if I had any advice for a tenant, it is, what you have in inventory, you need to be promoting and promoting it at market.
We've been saying the same thing. If you have inventory, you're in a very good competitive position because a lot of people, we are extending those delivery windows out until the end of the year, even into next year. So the people who have inventory really need to make the effort to let people know they have that.
Yeah, without question.
Now, in some ways, this is a lot like our opening day interviews. You and I do these almost the opening day of every market, and it's very hard on opening day, just as it is right now, to say, how is market? Because you don't know. But as you look at how Las Vegas is shaping up in terms of attendance, what are your expectations in terms of retail attendance and in terms of exhibitors?
Well, pre-registration would suggest that the market's going to be 40 to 50% the size of a regular market. I mentioned the apparel market was about 30%, and I'm talking about buyer attendance. Mm-hmm. There's no question that the buyers that attend are not bringing an entourage, and so the numbers are going to be down in that regard, where you're going to see just one or two people per store or even with the majors coming. Clearly, Las Vegas, as well as the Atlanta apparel markets and High Point, the same data points we have there, is they're going to be drive-in markets. And I think, the last information we had that was that people were willing to drive 5 to 6 hours to attend a market, and much more a bias in that direction than flying. And so I think also the expectation is people are coming in and they want to get a lot of work done quickly. And so, they're not going to spend 3, 4, 5 days. They're going to get in, they're going to work for a couple of days, work hard and get out. So I would think that, 40 or 50% of a normal market attendance would be good. I also think without a doubt that because of these are going to be drive-in markets, that it's a whole different audience coming to Las Vegas than is going to come to High Point. And so, both markets, I think, are going to share the same kind of dynamics.
That raises an interesting point about how markets are evolving. I mean, it's somewhat ironic that you announced IMC DI right as this happened, right? I mean, it almost looks prescient in retrospect, but it also seems, as you mentioned, it makes the market somewhat more regional even than they are historically. When you look at the longer term impact, not just Las Vegas, but High Point, what are your expectations in terms of how things are going to evolve over the next 6, 12 months?
I think it's apparent with the revolution underway at retail that B2B commerce is going to be even more complicated, that people are they're not going to diminish the physical marketplace. People want to look, touch, feel physical marketplace, but technology is going to enhance that. And certainly when your only opportunity is Zoom or a website that's vibrant, et cetera, it's going to be more productive if there's not access to a physical market. The third element of how buyers and sellers come together is with a rep. A rep is critical to this, and a lot of reps just can't physically get into stores, or a buyer doesn't maybe want to physically see them. But as this plays out, I think the marriage of technology to make discovery at market, to make market more efficient for buyers, to do digital commerce and fulfillment and is going to go hand in hand, and technology to make the reps' jobs more productive.
One of the things that we've started to see recently is High Point PreMarket. Looks like it's going to be bigger and more well attended. More people are exhibiting because it seems like retailers are trying to avoid high concentrations of people. They're more comfortable spreading out those visits. Do you think that kind of a thing might have an impact in obviously how people use their showrooms, whether it's the amount of space, how they use that space, how they access that space? What are you seeing and what insight can you offer as it relates to people's showrooms and how they use them?
Well, I think PreMarket is a classic example of the demand and craving for a physical market to get in front face to face, with companies and with new products, and even to revisit old products where, again, back to we need inventory now. If a company has a bestseller and a retailer hasn't purchased it before, they should be looking at it. And so I think that's an element of PreMarket. Certainly, we've got a restriction. We've capacity constrained each showroom to an attendance of 100 of one person per 120 square feet. So we're purposely diminishing the crowd size that can be in a showroom at any one time. And we're able to disperse people coming in with our touchless registration system. So how much of that will become a permanent change? It's hard to know. I do think that, super hygiene and cleanliness is definitely going to be in the future, and people making attendees comfortable that it's not just, at IMC, it's going to be in taxis and in hotel rooms and on airplanes. I think it all just kind of fits together. I think you'll see people that bring large teams, and if they're major enough where they'll be doing their own sort of, I'm going to be in High Point or I'm going to be in Las Vegas for 3 days, and we'd love to do something special with you, with a major supplier. I think all of that stuff starts flowing together.
Interesting. One of the things you talked about, the efficiency of this buying experience and how efficient people want to be. And one of the first things that you did was kind of take all of the content pieces from the show and make that virtual. In the last couple of years, we've seen an increase in companies using in-showroom content, whether that's seminars or roundtables, having guests. That's been a driver of traffic. What does this mean for the future of content as it relates to shows? Do we see a reversal of that?
Well, I don't think so. I think, again, it gets back to being an omni-channel world we're living in, that there's going to be, digital tools that outside of market are helpful. And I think that, the great companies will have their new products available digitally before market. So there's a reason to come to market. I also think that, technology, unto itself can be, cold. It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. But I don't think there's anything that's happened in the last 6 months, whether it's hard data we've gotten from surveys or what people are telling us in exit polls, that there's a diminishment of the physical marketplace.
Yeah, I don't see any loss of interest. I think people's biggest question is how soon? When can we get back? When does this go back to normal, right? I mean, that's kind of the questions we hear most. It's not like, oh, thank God we don't have to go to market. In actuality, the thing I hear more frequently is, I can't wait to get back to normal. I would really like to go back to seeing people, touching product, getting engaged in that same way.
And without a doubt. And I think one of the things, that's going to happen is the people that do come to markets are going to, by word of mouth, say, look, it is safe. Everybody did have a mask on. Interestingly, during the Apparel show, we only had to throw one person out for not wearing a mask. And we can do that because it's private property. And if you don't have a mask on and you're in a public space or interacting with people, that's not going to be tolerated. But I think once they're going to quickly realize that we're conducting markets with social distancing, with incredible personal protection equipment that we're giving away, incredible hygiene. And I think the bigger concern is people's concern with traveling and staying in a hotel room. I think the hospitality industry has done a really poor job of getting the word out that, look, here's all these things we're doing to make you feel safe when you're in the hotel and you're in your room or getting a meal. And so I think markets are going to be really defined as to how quickly they get back to normal with how safe people feel, in a hotel room or traveling.
That's an interesting point, and I guess it's kind of a little off topic, but when you think how quickly the fast food industry responded with contactless pickup, contactless delivery, all of those kinds of messages to let consumers know we're thinking about this, we've put some steps in place. I think about how you responded. I mean, you've been talking about all of these steps now for months, and yet I can't think of a single ad that I've seen or heard, print, digital, TV, radio, anywhere from a hotel chain or from a hotel company that said, we're taking extra steps to ensure your safety. I think that's a really important point that that will have a key role in the success of our ability to conduct markets in a more normal way.
The hospitality industry has to step it up in order for, I think, market to get back to where we all would say it's close to normal.
So as you look at Las Vegas, what would you consider a win? What would be the parameters, the reasonable parameters? And as you speak to exhibitors, because you and I both know we can always find a group that's going to complain. We can always find those guys who had a great market, but somewhere in that middle, right, are the folks who have some reasonable expectations. What would you say to folks in terms of what are reasonable expectations that would define a successful market for Las Vegas?
Well, I think, first of all, on the amount of tenants that are going to be open and resources that are available, I think anything north of 50% of the showrooms being open, and I think it could be as high as 70%. It was interesting at the, in our apparel market, we had directionally 50 to 60% said that they were going to be open. And then the last week, it immediately bumped up to 70%. And so people, it may not have been a full complement of, reps, but again, they understood it was going to be a drive-in market. But I think, more than half the showrooms open, 30 to 50% of the buyers that normally coming. I don't think there's any question that the buyers that come are going to buy. And so people that aren't there are going to miss that.
Well, this is people's chance. The market is open now, and we'll see who shows up. It's all, now it's up to the counting, right?
It is.
Well, Bob, thanks very much for taking the time. I have no doubt we'll do this again in October, and hopefully we can actually do it in a normal market under normal setting.
I look forward to that with great enthusiasm, Bill. Thanks so much for reaching out.
Bob, be well.
Thank you. You as well, Bill.